Hello, everyone. Let's just do a quick little review about scientific method and a little more specifically some hypothesis writing. Since we haven't had a chance to do a lot of this together, this video should help you follow proper format and think about the experiment you're going to be working with today. So, the scientific method follows a really nice order. Usually, you might do some background research on an interesting topic, or maybe you observe something happening in the natural world and you are curious. And so you ask a question about something that you're seeing, or perhaps in your observations, you see a problem that needs some solving. You would then figure out, what might happen in the situation. So you formulate a hypothesis, right? That testable statement about, what the outcome might be given certain testing parameters, right? So you did some observing, you asked a question, you formulated a hypothesis, and then you are going to go through and design an experiment to test your hypothesis. That experiment then allows you to collect a bunch of information, whether that be numerical, quantitative data, or verbal, so through observations, qualitative data. And then you analyze said results in order to come up with some sort of conclusion, some sort of idea of, what actually happened. And this can be a very secular process where, after collecting and analyzing your results, you end up with more of a question and a new hypothesis and a new experiment. And so this could go round and round and round. And eventually, you're going to want to communicate your results to a scientific community. And this could be in the form of a journal article or paper, research thesis, or presentation to your peers. Okay. In this particular class, given where we're at, we're really going to be looking at these conclusion style statements. And we're going to go into that just a little bit. Okay. So I really want to talk to you today about how to formulate an appropriate hypothesis. We've done a little bit of work with this before we had to leave. So what a hypothesis is just a testable statement that predicts an outcome to your problem or question at hand. Now, a lot of the times, based on where we're at, you'll have this problem or question handed to you and have to form a hypothesis about it. Okay, and we like to follow that if, then, because model. And this is the model I want you to use to write your hypothesis today for the boiling point lab that we're going to be looking at. And so if you're not 100% sure about what the if, then, because model is, it's about really detailing out what you are specifically going to change in our if statement. So this is that independent variable, the variable you are intentionally changing. And you're going to explain in your if statement what you're changing and really specifically how it's changing. Your then statement is really going to detail the outcome. Okay, so it's going to explain what are you measuring, calculating, or observing in order to show some kind of a change or to see what happened to the if, right? So that's your dependent variable, the variable you're looking at to see if there was any kind of response. And then your because statement is pretty simple, right? It's just a reason. It's a reason behind why you thought your then statement would happen, and it should be based on some sort of either previous research knowledge, background information that you did or you know about, So your if statement would be, if I change this in this way, then this is going to change in this way because of all of that interesting background information. Let's do an example together just to help you out here. Let's say I was looking at a lab on radish seeds in light and dark, okay? And so the purpose was given to me that I want to determine if radish seeds will grow taller when placed in a room with or without sunlight. You might see a purpose written as a question, so this might say something like, what will happen to plant height when radishes are grown in a light or dark room? So a purpose can be either a statement or a question that has to be answered. And so here's where we think about our hypothesis. Let's do a little bit of practice. How are we going to write this in an if, then, because format? First thing you want to do is figure out what are our independent and dependent variables. If you know what these are, then it gets really easy for you to write your if and then. So remember, the independent variable is the one thing that is going to be changed. I say one thing because if you have more than one thing changing, then it gets really difficult to figure out what had an effect, right? So one thing in this particular lab that is going to change is the darkness of the room. You are either going to have sunlight or you're going to have a dark room in order to grow your radish seeds. So what is our dependent variable? What are we going to be measuring or looking at to see if there was an effect from the independent variable? Well, we're looking at what will happen to plant height. So plant height would have to be our dependent variable. This is what we are going to be measuring to figure out if either sunlight or no light had an effect. So once you know your independent and dependent variable, you put those into your if and then statements. So my if statement might be something like, if radish seeds are planted in a room with either sunlight or darkness, so that's my variable in how they're changing, then plants in the light room will grow taller. So that is what I believe will happen and what I'm specifically going to be measuring, right? Plant height, grow taller. And then because, here's where background information has come in, right? Plants need sunlight to produce the nutrients used to grow. So we know that plants need light to grow. We know that they photosynthesize. That's how they store sugars and are able to do what they need to do. So there's our background knowledge. So here was a use of our if, then, because statements for a hypothesis. Now, typically after you have your hypothesis, you would then design an experiment. So, if we were following the whole scientific method, here's just an example of a procedure that you might use to then test specifically this hypothesis. So now I would really like it if you would open up the Boiling Point Lab document, read the purpose, and see if you can craft an if, then, because hypothesis for that lab. Once you get that all typed in, then open up the rubric for assessing hypotheses and make sure that you are reading through all of the levels to figure out where your hypothesis currently would be ranked using the rubric. Once you have your rubric turned in, I will then share the lab data with you for you to analyze the results. Have a great day.